I am Alex Elish, and today my guest is Kevin Palmieri.
I am an entrepreneur, a business owner, and I think the biggest thing that I am is a podcaster.
How do you keep yourself in the optimal shape to go there and do the thing?
Prep, rep, reflect, perfect. I was prepping more than anybody else I know. And that's why now I can go do an interview with almost no prep.
What do you want to improve for yourself?
I will be rooting for you. I will support you, and I will continue to add value into your life, regardless of if we ever work together or not.
Hello, and welcome to Big Performance Podcast, where our mission is to explore the great depths that can give us extra nice performance in business and in life. I am Alex Elish, and today my guest is Kevin Palmieri. Welcome. How are you doing?
Alex, I like I said to you behind the scenes, I'm living the dream. I appreciate you having me. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm excited to talk about all things big performance today.
Cool. So first, I want you to introduce like rough overview of what you're doing, and then I will ask you to speak about how did you get there? What
Okay.
pushed you on this career trajectory?
Yeah. So today I am an entrepreneur, a business owner, and I think the biggest thing that I am is a podcaster. So I have a podcast called Next Level University. We have 1,750 something episodes as of today, over 1 million listens and listeners in 170 some odd countries. So that's like the big thing that I do. I podcast every single day. My favorite thing in the world, truly a dream come true for me. And then within our business, we have coaching and we have social media stuff and podcast production and video stuff. And that's what allows us to make a living and get to do this every single day.
How did you get to that understanding that communicating and sharing your experiences and improving
Hmm.
with the audience is something that you want to do?
I I never really knew what I wanted to do with my life. This wasn't one of those things where I was young where I said, "Oh, I'm going to be a speaker and an entrepreneur." I was never that. I didn't go to college. All my friends went away to college and I got a job at the local gas station and I pumped gas. And then I was a personal trainer at a gym. I was a forklift operator. I was a truck driver. I cleaned bathrooms and floors at a hospital. I did many, many, many different things because I didn't really know what I wanted to do and I didn't feel like I was good at anything. Eventually, I got a job in an industry called weatherization. So we would go into buildings and we would make them more energy efficient. That was my job in a nutshell. And when I was working this job, one of my friends at the time, who's now my business partner and the co host of the podcast, he said, "Hey, I have a YouTube channel and I want to interview you on fitness, mindset, resilience, discipline. I think we should do it." And I said, "I don't know how good it's going to be. I don't really know what I'm going to say. I don't think I'm a great speaker. I'm not that smart, but we'll see what happens." And we did like an hour and a half interview. And at the end of the hour and a half interview, I said to my other friend who was there, I said, "That went by in what feels like 5 minutes. Imagine if you could do that for a living. Like that would be the best thing ever." And he said, "Well, you can. There's people that do it." So shortly thereafter, I went out, I bought all the equipment I needed, and then I started a podcast. And it connected for me because I've always wanted to help people. I just never really knew how. A lot of people say, "How does someone find their purpose?" I think the purpose is drastically different than the vehicle. The purpose is the thing underneath, the vehicle is how you deliver it. I think my purpose has always been to help people. I just never had the vehicle. So I found podcasting in 2017. And then in 2018, after a brush with suicidal ideations, I left my job and I went into podcasting full time and became a very broke entrepreneur trying to figure out how to make money, build a business, and all that stuff. So yeah, when I found it, I fell in love with it. And it was a conversation to myself of if I could do this for the rest of my life, I would be the most fulfilled person humanly possible. And that's the mission we're on now.
How would is it such a bad niche? I mean, weatherization. Did that make you suicidal? Just working in that, not getting enough fulfillment from making
Yeah.
people's homes energy efficient?
So I didn't do homes, which was good because we did like one time and it was terrible. I worked on government buildings. It was schools, fire stations, police stations. The issue was I'm somebody who grew up without money. So our family did not have a lot of money. And that developed a belief in my mind that if I had a lot of money, that would fix all my problems. So the year that I made the most money ever at that company, I made $100,000. I was 26 years old, and I spent 10 months living on the road in hotels because a lot of our contracts, Alex, were in other parts of the country. So I would literally pack my suitcase on Sunday. I would get in our work van and I would drive 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours to a job site. And then I'd stay in a hotel all week. And then Friday night after work, I'd drive back. And then I'd literally do the same thing the next week. I would take my clothes out of my suitcase, throw them into the washer, take them out of the washer, put them into the dryer, and then they went right back into the suitcase. And then I was gone again. So I did that for 10 months straight. I achieved what I thought was going to bring me happiness and fulfillment, and it didn't. And then I had that moment where I knew I couldn't do that again. I couldn't spend that much time on the road, staying up for days on end. I was so miserable. I was so homesick. So yeah, that was a really big piece. And I was dealing with depression and anxiety, and that was obviously a piece of it too. It wasn't just the job, but I would say the job was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak.
I absolutely get it. This like work commute is one of the major factors. I think second only to having a work friend
Mm,
for life satisfaction and overall happiness derived from your career choice. All right.
makes sense.
And like being with this commute for a month straight, it can do a number on you.
Yeah, and when I
All
tell
right.
you I was staying at hotels, Alex, these were not the nice hotels. These were the dirty, disgusting, sketchy, like needles outside, blood on the walls. I was not staying in nice places. So that was a piece of it too. It was just very dark, the whole thing.
Very moody environment
Yes.
indeed. And when I understand the other moment that you shared about jumping from the career that pays the bills and gives you this like official level of financial stability
Mm.
and success that you were striving for, and then going into being a struggling entrepreneur. That is something that probably could have been an issue with you before you got the grasp of that there is something else apart from money.
Yeah.
So when you became a struggling entrepreneur, you started the podcast. How did it go? Because I've started the podcast. I am enjoying it immensely, and I like it so far. So what was your experience when you were in my shoes?
So I knew my job had an end date, so I tried to save as much money as I could. So when I left my job, I had $10,000 in the bank. I assumed it was going to get me a lot further than it did. I burned through that money pretty quickly, believe it or not. I shouldn't have been ordering as much pizza as I was at the time. It for me in the beginning, it was trying to work on myself. It's this weird thing where we were doing an episode every week and then eventually we went up to two a week and that kept going. But in the very beginning, I was working on my character. I was trying to be a more consistent human. I was reading a ton of books, trying to learn about all the things that I didn't know. I was trying to fill in all the gaps in my knowledge. And I was really trying to work on believing in myself. I think that was probably the biggest issue in the beginning was I didn't really think I was going to be successful. I genuinely didn't. My business partner is a genius. and he's got a master's in business, and he's just one of those guys who he wins at everything he does because he's just a grinder and he's very intelligent. I knew if I partnered with him, I would be more successful. I just didn't know if I could handle it. I always felt like an imposter. I never felt smart enough. So that's really what I was dealing with in the beginning. We would get these opportunities to interview people or travel to people to meet them, and I always had well, I'm not good enough. This is going to go horrible. I'm going to get found out. They're going to know I'm not that smart. What if I ask a dumb question? What if I pronounce somebody's name wrong? That was running me for the first few years. And I always tell people, because I talk to and I work with a lot of podcasters, I didn't feel confident as a podcaster until 150 episodes in. That is a long time to feel like you don't know what you're doing. 150 episodes is a long time. If you're doing an episode a week, that's 3 years. So that's really what the first couple years were like for me. It was doing all of the internal work, working on self-awareness, trying to figure out why I didn't believe in myself, dealing with insecurities around people, trying to work on my ego to be more humble. A lot of the first couple of years were like internal work. It was very little building the business. And that's why we didn't make any money for the first 2 years. We didn't really focus on it. I wish we did, but it also makes sense now. And I'm happy we did it the way we did.
And you're saying you're working with podcasters and kind of coaching people through this learning curve. Did you find a way that you kind of packaged inside your methodology that you share with other people to make it maybe faster than 2 years to feeling confident and starting to earn from this lifestyle?
Yeah, it was never part of the goal. I never thought that was going to happen. But when we were like 3 or 400 episodes in, one of my friends said, "Hey, I know somebody who wants to start a podcast. You should help them." And I had the same thing. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know that much. What if I let them down? It's the same story. And then I ended up helping them start their podcast. And then we did all the production for it because they didn't know how to audio edit or video edit. And that became something that we did. So yeah, it's kind of the same thing where our approach to business has always been different. I will never tell anyone, like if you came to me, Alex, and said, "Hey, I want to work with you, help me with my podcast, what can I expect?" I always tell people it's going to be harder than you think. It's going to take longer than you think. Yes, I can help you do it faster than I did, but it's still probably going to take longer than you realize. I just try to be very honest about that because I think that most other people are doing the opposite. So it's going to be harder than you think. It'll probably take longer than you think. You're going to learn a lot of lessons that you wish you didn't have to. And ultimately, you'll be grateful you did. That's kind of always been my coaching strategy. My number one thing is to save people time. That's like our business model in a nutshell. I save you time and then I help you raise your awareness. So yeah, we can definitely help someone do it faster, but not without struggle, not without effort, and not without challenge. That is all par for the course.
That's interesting. I think that you have your experience drove you to the working belief that podcasting and personal development go hand to hand, because that was your experience and the challenges that you are preparing people to, with saying that it will be hard, it will take time, you will learn the stuff that you wish you never knew about, but you will be thankful about it. It is like completely the image of personal development when there is a huge load of work ahead of you.
Yeah.
I don't see the parallel with podcasting, because for podcasting, compared to that, podcasting is like so setting up the microphone, the light, and the work environment.
Well, that you'd be surprised at how big the mindset thing is. The mindset and the self-improvement piece is huge because I have coached one of our clients started their podcast with us and they're 360 something episodes in. and they've never missed an episode ever. And they've turned it into a business, a full-time business. A lot of what we talked about was like internal stuff. When we were working through sales, I was taught, like, don't even think about it as sales, think about it as helping people. Your deep fear of being rejected anytime you talk about sales is stopping you from helping people. That's all self-improvement. That's all personal development. It wasn't like a 5-step sales framework that helped them. It was well, why are you afraid of sales in the first place? So I always try to go to the identity of the person first. And yeah, if somebody wants to talk about how to title episodes and make money and all that, that's my jam for sure. But I like starting with who is Alex and what are Alex's beliefs and what are Alex's limiting beliefs? Where is Alex accurate? Where is Alex inaccurate? Because if I can get you to do something for longer than you would, there's a higher likelihood that you're successful. And that's my ultimate thing, is how do I help someone do it for longer? Because you're going to get more results that way. So yeah, I would say I pair self-improvement with pretty much everything I do at this point.
We have to, because we are all human and we only function in a social environment with,
Yeah.
especially with the business, and such a business as podcasting, where you are not, it's not one-to-one communication, when you can just like hang on to some ropes of communication that jumped at you with the character of the person that you are communicating with.
Yeah.
But this is the audience and it will see everything.
Mm.
I enjoy how you talk about limiting beliefs and sales. And I think that your approach is much healthier than the sales trainings that are all over the place, saying, here is what you need to believe in order to sell. They're giving like, you believe these 3 things, now you can go sell, rather than finding the beliefs that are already in you that can either help you sell or that will sabotage every time that you can close a deal, just because you don't believe in the product or how you do it or yourself. Yeah, or maybe you just don't like the person that you're selling to. This is also the case that would drive you straight to self-sabotage.
It's hard because I think a lot of people think they have to do things in certain ways. This is the hard truth. And this is a hard truth that I had to learn. So I'll speak from my experience. There were parts of me that needed to shift. I was getting in my own way in many regards. But there were also parts of me that when I shifted, I actually got better at the things that I didn't know how to do. My sales approach, I got the best compliment the other day, Alex. I was talking to someone about our products and services, and I said, this is how much it is. This is what it is. If you're into it, awesome. If not, no worries. You have my email. If you ever have any questions about anything, just email me. And even though we're not quote unquote working together, I'm happy to answer all the questions. And if anything ever comes up and you want to work together, just let me know. But I will be rooting for you. I will support you, and I will continue to add value into your life, regardless of if we ever work together or not. And this person sent me this really nice message, and they said, wow, I really appreciate the way you do it. And I said, here's my belief. I would much rather somebody say no and be happy to a product or service that I provide than say yes and regret it. Nobody talks about that in these sales trainings. They don't talk about what happens after they sell the product. They only talk about selling the product. I don't want to sell something and then somebody be upset or frustrated or regret it. I would rather somebody say no and be okay with it than say yes and not be okay with it. But that's something that took me years and years and years to understand. And when you're scarce and you need to make a sale, that's a whole thing. If you don't have any money in your account, you're going to do things differently because you kind of have to. So it's this whole thing. But what I gave advice to somebody one time, she was leaving her job and she was going to go sell cars. And I said 3 things. 1, you are a beautiful human being. People are going to flock to you. You're very attractive. That's going to help you a ton. 2, just try. And I said, this is going to sound so stupid. just try to solve the customer's actual problems when they come to you. If they need a minivan, find them a nice minivan. Don't try to sell them a Porsche. Just find them a nice minivan. And I said, just always try to be yourself. Those are the three things. And she went to this dealership and she made six figures her first year. Was that anything that I taught her? No. She was just being herself and trying to solve people's problems. And I think we overcomplicate things at times. We tend to overcomplicate them because people want other people to think that they need them. You don't need me to start a podcast. You don't need me. There's a million articles. You can YouTube it, Google it. You can start a podcast without me. For sure. There's a lot you can do without me. Can I help you? Yes. But I'm supplemental. You're the thing. I'm just a supplement.
Tell me a little bit about your partnership with Alan. How do you complement each other in your business?
Alan he's an electrical and computer engineer. So he is very systems thinking, hyper logical, the most logical human. I am naturally emotional. I'm more of an emotional thinker and I have to kind of think my way into logic. So we have helped each other a ton. He has helped me be more consistent, more logical, and more externally successful. I have helped him with understanding self-worth, being more emotionally intelligent, and honestly understanding the general population of humans. He doesn't really get it. Alex, I've never met someone who believes in themselves as much as he does. He doesn't know what it's like to not believe in yourself. And the vast majority of humans struggle with self-belief. So what I've really been trying to do for the last 7 years is help him understand that a lot of what he says, nobody understands because they can tell that he doesn't understand them. So we complement each other in all of those ways. I was somebody who had very little confidence. He was somebody who had massive confidence. So we've driven to the center of that where now we try to be both as humble as we can, but we both have belief in ourselves and we're both more accurate than ever. It's really that. Now, as we've grown and evolved, I've started to understand that for a lot of the time, I was trying to be like him because I thought I was supposed to. Now I'm figuring out, okay, what can I take in terms of lessons from Alan? What lessons can he take from me? And then how do we be our own separate people? Because that's really the only way to be fulfilled. I don't want to work 7 days a week. I work 6 days a week. He works 9 days a week. I don't want that. I like where I'm at. But that came from trial and error of getting burnt out and then resenting the business and then resenting Alan and then having a conversation and kind of rinsing and repeat that forever. So yeah, we're polar opposites who really needed each other to get to where we want to go. But there are some commonalities. I grew up in the same town as Alan, went to elementary school, middle school, and high school with him. And one of the things that has always locked us together is we both grew up without fathers. My dad left when I was young, and his father passed away in a car accident when he was 2. So that has bonded us for as long as we've known each other. So as different as we are, we had a lot of the same traumas growing up.
I want to return to this part of the conversation a little bit later because I
Sure.
figured that we skipped one thing that would be interesting for me, and that would be your belief in yourself, confidence,
Mm.
and this imposter syndrome of I don't know what I'm doing. I was struggling with it, and I do not remember how I overcame it, actually. But what I see as the best advice that I could have had would be this, that you don't need to actually find this confidence in yourself. You need to provide yourself with the results that show that you are, well, you can do the thing.
Hmm.
You could do it again, again, again. And this is the proof that you know your stuff, you are successful, you are enough. So this is not something that you can discover, but this is something where you can provide yourself with the proof that shows you and can remind you every day that you are every bit as worthy as a human being in your shoes, in your career, in your position in life. What do you think about that?
I think what you're talking about, because you use the word worth or worthy, I think there's a drastic difference between self belief and self worth. What you just said for me is very similar to how I deal with imposter syndrome. I was getting ready to go on a podcast like 6 months ago, and I was doing research on this podcast, as I do. I listened to an episode, or not the whole thing, but I listened to some of your episode. I checked out YouTube, I checked out the website. I'm always trying to do research. And this person I was going on, the host, was a doctor for NASA. So they were a space doctor. Alex, I didn't even know that was a real thing. I thought that was stuff that that was like a movie thing. And I had this moment where I was thinking, there must be another Kevin Palmieri. There's no way I'm supposed to be on this podcast today. I don't know anything compared to this person. What are we doing? But I did what you just spoke to. I looked at the most recent and relevant proof. So when is the most recent time I did something where I didn't feel like I could do it, but I did it anyway and it went better than I expected? And then part two is, how is that relevant to what we're doing today? Well, the last time was a podcast where I was talking to a doctor of psychology and I had the same moment. There's no way I'm going to be able to add a shred of value to this episode. It went better than I expected. Awesome. So that's how I deal with imposter syndrome is I look at the most recent and relevant proof, part one. And part two, I now believe imposter syndrome is a positive thing because it is a suggestion of growth. If you're consistently pushing yourself outside of what you're capable of, that means you're growing. I use the gym analogy. If I go to the gym and I grab a weight and I think to myself, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. This might be too heavy. Don't hurt yourself, obviously, but that's a suggestion that I'm growing and I'm trying something that I haven't tried before. And then eventually that becomes normal. And then you add weight. So that's a thought on imposter syndrome. I think self-belief and self-worth. Self-belief is your belief in your unique ability to build something external. Self-worth is your determination of whether or not you actually deserve something. So self-belief, if you want to build it, you have to consistently push your comfort zone, just a little and a little and a little and a little. Because what happens for a lot of us, and this is where I got stuck, we call it the confidence conundrum. If you don't believe you can do something, you don't try to do it. When you don't try to do it, you don't get any results. When you don't get any results, you get zero feedback / belief. And then the next time you think about doing it, you don't have any relevant proof. But if you can just inject a little bit of belief, for me, Alan was that belief. Alan helped me a ton in this. Then you try something, even if you don't know how it's going to go. So you take action, you get feedback. Oftentimes it goes better than you think, and that becomes your relevant proof for next time. So we're consistently trying to push the comfort zone a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Self-worth is potentially, from my perspective, a different thing. Self-worth is more a conversation of, I believe that I'm capable of starting a successful business or building this house or whatever it is. I don't feel like I'm deserving of the results that come with it. I don't feel like I deserve people looking up to me. I don't feel like I deserve the money that comes with a successful business. I don't feel like I deserve awards and kind words and compliments. That's a whole different thing. Self-worth can be built from setting boundaries, from having courageous conversations, from setting and keeping small promises to yourself. I think building self-belief is mostly external. Like, this is going to build self-belief for me, not necessarily self-worth. The internal part of it is setting boundaries. So let's say I don't know. Let's say we got on this today and Alex, you weren't an amazing human like you are, and you tried to like sell me something. You're like, Kev, this actually isn't a podcast, but I do have this product or service that I think you might be interested in. In order to maintain my self worth, I would have to set a boundary and say, Alex, that's not cool. I feel like this is kind of a waste of my time. I was misled on why I'm being here. And honestly, that's a little offensive to me. I'm going to go. I don't want to hear about your product or service. That would increase my self worth. But if I let you walk all over me and I stayed here even though I didn't want to be, and I just let you do your thing, I would have to put my self worth to the back seat to sit through that conversation. That's all internal stuff. So that to me, that's kind of the difference between all three. I think imposter syndrome can be a mix of self belief and self worth, but I think self belief and self worth are very different monsters to work through. Yeah.
I understood the reference.
Did you?
I did, yeah, I did visit such a podcast where a guy just wanted to sell me stuff.
Yes. Happens. It happens too often, unfortunately.
Okay, I heard something very interesting that you and Alan were growing up without fathers. So it's very interesting for me to hear your experience. Did you had a mentorship relationship with someone? Because you are acting as a mentor for some people through coaching.
Mhm.
And then you got into this situation where you and Alan create a partnership where you both have to learn and grow and find the how the men do it without having all the experience from your childhood watching your fathers do the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
How was it?
I had no male role models growing up. No positive male role models. I didn't really have anyone to really look up to. I was always looking for that. I was always looking for someone like me, someone who was an underdog, someone who was counted out, someone who struggled with everything that they did. They felt like they struggled with everything that they did. And I never really found that. Same for Alan. Alan never really found that. So my one of my deep goals, one of my deep beliefs is I want to be the person that I needed. And that's why I show up the way I do and I try to be the person that I am. And Alan is the same thing. The interesting piece, Alex, is I needed a different person than Alan did. And Alan needed a different person than I did. And I think that's why we're so unique, but also so similar. I wouldn't have resonated with Alan. Alan is too smart for 16-year-old Kev. 16-year-old Kev would have thought he was an arrogant guy. I wouldn't have resonated with him. Alan probably wouldn't have resonated with me because he probably wouldn't have thought I was smart enough because he values intelligence at a very, very high degree. And don't villainize him for that. It's not a negative thing. So I think that's our ultimate goal. Our ultimate purpose, the place we're trying to get to is I want to be the type of man that would make 16-year-old Kev proud. Because I'll be very honest, I've met a lot of people that are big on social media and are one type of way in front of the camera, and they're not that way behind the scenes. And I've been very sad. There was a lot of people I looked up to that I don't look up to the same way I used to. There are also some people who I've met behind the scenes who I look up to more, but that number is drastically smaller than the first one. So that's my goal. My goal is to be the type of person that I needed, and the type of person that I needed listened, and he was there, and he was relatable, and he helped me believe in myself. And that's what I aspire to be. So yeah, it's all that. It's very unique how it came together that way, and now we are men leading a bunch of people. It's very interesting.
Awesome. And with the differences in character and skills and affinities between you and Ellen, do you fight for some coaching clients or you pick whoever is better in this particular case for this particular person?
That's a great question. What we used to do was if you resonated with Alan, you probably needed me. And if you resonated with me, you probably needed Alan. That was a thing that we did for a while because I never would have wanted to work with Alan, but I needed Alan. And he never would have wanted to work with me, but he needed me in many ways. But no, we've never, for us, it's been about the business. So whether I'm coaching someone or Alan's coaching someone, it's helping our business grow. It's helping that person. I'm at the stage now, I do mostly podcast coaching. I'm doing like 99% podcast coaching. It got to the place where when I started transitioning from peak performance and mindset, that type of coaching, I sent everybody to Alan. I said, look, I'm at the stage now where I'm not doing as much of this coaching. I'm not going to be able to serve you at the same level he is. He's better at this than I am. He is a better coach than I am in those regards. I want to make sure that you're getting served by the person who's going to help you the most. So no, it was never a competition because we wanted to grow the business. And ultimately, I genuinely want what's best for someone. I don't want someone to work with me if I can't help them. I don't want that. I don't want your money if I can't help you. I'd rather you go work with somebody who can. And for me, it was always passing people to Alan. So no, that's never been an issue, but I would say we were very mature, not very mature. We were more mature than maybe the average human when we started working together. And it's not about me. It's about the business. It's about the mission. It's about the team. It's about the community. It's not about Kevin. It's not about Alan. We just happen to be the faces of what we're doing. But without the community and the mission, this whole thing is non-existent anyway.
Studying your website, I would say that I really did see this drive to help the person first as the first focus of everything you do, because you have a number of services, and I see that those services, I would not say complement each other.
Mm.
It provides a choice for the person to see which service is better suited for them. If I
Yeah.
go to group coaching, maybe I don't need one-to-one coaching. If I go to your learning resources, maybe I don't need coaching at all. But the variety of stuff that you are offering on the website, it looks like you are trying to help the most amount of people you possibly can.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that very much. Yeah. A lot of people start group coaching so they can charge a little bit less than they do for one-on-one and then make 10 times the amount in each call. That wasn't our thought. Our thought was, well, there's a lot of people who can't afford one-on-one coaching. So we'll make a lower price point. And it's still Alan and I together on every single one of these calls. Like, we're investing a lot of time, but it's impact first. It's always been impact first. That hurt us at times for sure, because we would give stuff away for free that we probably shouldn't have been, but I'd rather do it that way than the other way. And if you're really impact first, prove it. There's a lot of people that say they're impact first. Alex, I don't do a podcast episode every single day because I want to. I do a podcast episode every single day because I promised the community we would. It's not about me. I don't want to do it every day. It's not that I want to. I love it and I'm fulfilled doing it. But there are days where I wake up and I say, I don't know if I can do this today. I'm burnt out. I'm tired, whatever it is, but it's not about me. This is what I signed up for. And when I say we're going to do an episode every single day until I die or I decide I don't want to do this anymore, that's what we're going to do, because we really are impact first. And I appreciate the perspective very much.
You demonstrate crazy consistency and being mission driven and being devoted to the community and the values that you share with those community people. So that tells to me that you are aligned on those values. Otherwise, the community will not stick to you.
Yes.
This community will only after the demonstration of those values. What I am interested in as a beginning podcaster would be, how do you keep tabs on the quality, on the performance improvement from episode to episode? How do you keep yourself in the optimal shape to go there and do the thing?
One of the systems, one of the frameworks that we ran a lot in the beginning, it was prep, rep, reflect, perfect. So prep, you prepare for what you're doing. I still do it. I still looked at your website. I still listened to an episode. I still looked at what you were doing. I'm still prepping. I prep as a guest more than some hosts prep as hosts. But that's just the way I'm wired. I like to know who I'm talking to. It's important to me. So prepping is a big thing. If you've never done something before, I think it's probably like at least a 1-to-1 ratio. For every 1 hour I was interviewing, I did at least an hour of research. It was usually 3. So I was doing a lot of prep. Okay, cool. We're preparing. We're getting ready for battle. Do the rep. Actually go through with a rep regardless of how you're feeling. Obviously, there's certain circumstances, right? If you're throwing up, maybe you're not going to do a podcast episode. But if you can, do it. Get the rep. Reflect. Listen back to the episode. Get feedback from the guest or whoever you're talking to, and really reflect. We were listening to, and we still do, just it's harder to keep up with, but I still listen to our podcast to make sure the audio quality is there, to make sure everything's flowing the way it should, to make sure the end user experience is good. I watch our YouTube episodes to make sure my camera's focused, the lighting's good, everything's good there. So that is reflecting. What went well? What didn't go well? What are we going to change moving forward? How can we improve? And then the perfect is take all of that into account and then formulate your plan for your next prep. And that, for us, that was the first. We still do that. It's just more unconscious at this point. It's just different. But we did that for the first, my goodness, at least 500 episodes, where we would literally get to the end of an episode and we would say, all right, what's the most important win? What's the most important improvement? What did we do well? What do we need to do better? And we still do that with every single business meeting we have. We go through the metrics, and Alan designed this, not me, engineer. Kevin would not come up with this. We do all the metrics, so whatever it may be, depending on the department. And then everybody in the meeting, whether there's 3 people or there's 5 people, whatever the department is, most important win, most important improvement. So that's really how it was for us. A lot of people don't review their work. They just do it and then they go to the next thing. But there's a lot of really valuable information in the actual rep. And it requires you to reflect on it. I gave a speech one time and it was bad. It was the worst speech I've ever given, for sure. And immediately after, Alan and I went back to his house and we watched it. And it wasn't as bad as I thought, which was very important to me. But I saw where I went wrong and I learned the lesson. So immediately after the rep, we went back and we reflected. And the biggest issue I had was I didn't do enough prep. The prep to the rep wasn't there and it ended up tanking pretty badly. So yeah, that's how we've always kept dibs on it. And we have a lot of different scores and there's a lot of metrics behind the scenes, but that's the simplest thing. Most people, especially podcasters, don't listen to their own content. They don't like the way they look and they don't like the way they sound. I understand. Trust me, I understand. I did not want to listen to myself blabber on this microphone, but it's going to help you. It's going to help you for sure.
You have been a fitness coach, and my question is, do you still give some value to that kind of performance? Like in relationship to your work? I mean, exercising, meditation, eating the right food, that kind of being prepared to performance.
Not as much as we should. So our brand is health, wealth, and love. That's really Next Level University in a nutshell. We talk a lot about mental health and emotional health and less about physical health. I'm not saying that's right. We probably should talk more about physical health, but I feel like, I don't know, it's probably a blind spot for me because I've been exercising for a long time. I'm 34. I've been exercising since I was 16. So 18 years. I probably have blind spots to what's really valuable content where I don't think it is because I'm so used to it and I'm desensitized to it. But we talk a lot about emotional, and we talk about, yeah, mostly emotional and mental health. But we could definitely uptick on the physical health, because it's still, Alan's exercised every day for like 2.5 years or something. I'm in the gym 6 or 7 times a week. So it's something that's very important to us. I just know that bodybuilding is not what everybody wants to do. So I want to make sure I'm looking at it through a lens of how do I help the most people, and not just talk about how I like lifting weights all the time.
Mhm. How I got this idea, I thought like, what would I do if I had an episode of the podcast and I did not want, I didn't feel like doing it. I think what I would do, I would think, what else do I not want to do today? Push-ups. Do you want to do push-ups? And I'm like, no, I definitely don't want to do push-ups. And I'm like, all right, you're doing push-ups. I make myself go and do push-ups. And after that, magically, I'm like, whatever you need me to do, I will comply. I like do I would love to do an episode. Just like after getting this foot into the, I would not say foot into, foot through the door of the stuff that you don't feel like doing. After
Yeah.
push-ups, you can do anything, mental, any mental work. Yeah,
I
works
like
after
that.
push-ups.
I like that. Yeah, push-ups are the cue.
And what are the exciting stuff that you are preparing for? How is it? Next level university for the next year. Do you
That's
have like
always,
growth plan year
yeah.
forward?
Yeah, we always have growth plans. It's our goal is to increase revenue by 50% year over year, and that's obviously an incredibly challenging thing to do. Impact is more people. That's always going to be it. I don't know the specifics off the top of my head. They're in our dashboard somewhere. But this is always a challenging question for me, because it's going to be more of the same, just a little bit better, and you probably won't even recognize it. It's very unsexy. Like, we're just trying to get a little bit better every day. Hopefully I'll be a little bit better of a speaker. I'll be a better communicator. Our content will be a little bit better. I think the thing that's most exciting for me for NLU is I'm doing more traveling. For the last 7 years, Alan and I have basically locked ourselves in our offices, studios, and it's just behind the scenes. Everything is virtual. Once we locked in after COVID, we didn't really do anything or go anywhere. I'm doing more traveling, which is nice because it creates more opportunities. I was in Toronto a couple weeks ago for a speech. My wife and I went to Scotland last month or the month before. In a couple of months, I'm going to a big podcasting conference in Washington, D.C. It's nice to do a little bit of traveling because I actually enjoy it and it fulfills me. And it creates opportunities that we've been leaving on the table. I'm not a big networker. I don't like meeting people just to meet people. It's never really been my thing. But if I can meet someone and add value, that was my reframe. Networking is adding value for me. I'm not just going to meet someone to try to do business. I'm going to meet someone and try to add value. And if I add value, awesome. That means I did my thing. So yeah, more traveling is something I'm super excited about. But for NLU, it's just the same but better forever. That'll never change. We're not taking, we're on a train and we're on a track and we're just chugging forward. And unless some ridiculous track opens up, we're just going to keep doing the same thing forever and ever and ever. It's very unsexy, and I know it's not the best answer, but it's always, I always try to give the truthful answer, and that's it. And the other thing is, it really depends on what Alan says. Alan's the one who's setting the goals. Alan's the one who's creating the milestones. So he's in more control of the next year in terms of the vision than I am. So it kind of depends on what the boss says.
I think that there was something sexy in what you are talking, and for me, in this research of higher and better performance in mental work that we all do, I think that sexy thing was the traveling itself, and it's
Mm.
very close related for me to mental diet. So the I believe that the output, the creative output that we are doing, is closer related to the input that we are getting, that we tell it ourselves. So in that case, traveling is very close to improving the stuff that you do,
Mm.
because you get new emotion, you see new people, you see new places. Yeah, and this enhances like almost directly the outcome. So with this regard, I want to ask you, how would you describe your content diet? Well, what do you watch for yourself? What do you consume?
I so I don't listen to any podcasts other than our own, just because the amount of time it takes me to consume 7 30-minute episodes. There's not a lot of time for other podcasts. I do what I call specific learning. So if I'm in a sales season where I feel like I need to learn more about sales, I just go find a bunch of books on sales. Brian Tracy, The Psychology of Selling. I think it was Brian Tracy. I love Phil M. Jones. Phil M. Jones, we've had him on the podcast a couple times. Great sales trainer, but very ethical. So it really, for me, it's seasons. If I'm struggling with self belief or self worth, I'll go internal and I'll listen to Mindset by Carol Dweck or something along those lines. If I need a gentle kick in the butt, I might listen to Atomic Habits and just get back into little 1% improvements every day. I couldn't give you any specifics, but I'm always kind of looking for good relationship content to improve my relationship with my wife. That's always a focus. A lot about money. I've learned a lot about money. Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, I believe. So yeah, really, it depends. It depends on what season I'm in and what I feel like I'm lacking the most. That's usually just, I'm very tactical. For me, it's where do I suck? Where do I need to get better? I'm going to go focus on that. And then when I feel like that's up to where it needs to be, I'll jump to the next weakest link. And then I kind of just repeat that process until everything gets a little bit better and a little bit better.
I hear that you count books little bit higher than podcasts.
Yes. More research.
So
More
or research.
research. Yeah.
What I have in mind is my relationship between those two, and I am not a big book reader,
Mm.
but I am an avid researcher, and I am very good with video content. The example that I will give you is that at some point I got interested in the work that Robert Greene does,
Mm.
and I watched a few podcasts, like this in-depth conversations with him, but I never read one of his books. So when in a conversation with a friend, 48, 48 Laws of Power came up,
Mm.
and they were super excited to talk about it. They're like, we read this book, it is awesome, and we're cool. I'm like, all right, cool. I watched, I didn't read the book. I watched a couple of episodes. What did you find valuable? And there's like, you know, there are laws, for example, that you don't overthrow your boss or something. But we hated all the laws. I'm like, what? Those laws are manipulative and not very good. I'm like, but you were excited about the book.
Mm-mm.
And I find myself in a position where I am telling the person who read the book about the real intent and what this book is teaching people,
Yep.
because I listened to Robert Greene explaining it,
Mm.
and they were oblivious. And I'm like, if I just read the book, would I be able to explain what this book is about to another person?
Mm.
Probably not. So I
Yeah.
think in this instance, podcasts probably work better for me.
Understandable. Everybody learns differently. So for me, it's audiobooks. I don't read because it's just I'd rather do mobility and listen to something at the same time than take an hour to read. It's just for me, I'd rather multi habit stack. But everybody's different. I love watching YouTube content because I'm a very visual learner, so that's always good. But yeah, I think it depends. The reason I'm hesitant for podcasts is the barrier to entry for a podcast is so low that you really don't, and I don't mean this, trust me, I knew nothing at the beginning. So I'm talking to me. I didn't really know that much at the beginning. And I feel like it's a very, not everybody has the response, they don't feel the responsibility to make sure that what they say is actually truthful. And that's why we stopped having guests. We at one point said, look, it's challenging when an episode crosses over from somebody's expertise to something else because the audience is going to assume they're an expert in that because they're an expert in one thing. And even if they don't know what they're talking about, it's a very, very, it's easy to fall prey to listening to what they say. So I feel a responsibility to make sure that the content we curate is as truthful based on what my truth is and what Alan's is as humanly possible, because I just don't want to mislead anybody. And I know it's easy with a podcast because you don't have to do any research. We had a guest on. Have you ever read, my goodness, I can't think of the name of the book. His name's Stephen Kotler.
No,
He's
I don't remember the names. Maybe what is it exactly that they've written?
That's the problem is I can't remember the name of the book, which is, that's a huge concern. He's studied a lot about flow, and he studied like how people that do the impossible actually do the impossible. I'll email you the name of it. But he said something along the lines of one of the reasons a book is so valuable is because it takes 5, 10, 15, 20 years of research and experience to write. And that always resonated with me because a really good book has a lot of experience behind it. So that's always really resonated with me. A podcast episode, pretty simple to create. Not all of them are just jump on the mic and talk, but yeah.
You're
Depends.
getting me very conflicted. You're saying that you spend a lot of time preparing for podcasts and researching guests. Then you're saying that you are no longer taking guests, and that it no longer takes you so much time to prepare for the episodes. And I'm like, you just removed huge bonus of expertise that the huge niche guest coming to you with like already prepared expertise. Here's and you're saying you have less time to spend to prepare for the episode. I would think that getting rid of the guests, you would need to double and triple the amount of time that you need to prepare for the episode.
You'd think so, but one of the things is, I mean, at this point, I've done almost 3,000 podcast episodes in total. So things that used to take me an hour don't take me as long because the experience is in here. So I think when my prep is different now, my prep is when I go on a trip or when I do something, I'm always thinking from the lens of, based on what I experience, what lessons can I share with the audience? So my mind is always primed for, even in this episode, is there something that Alex asked that I could pull out as a valuable piece of content for our podcast? I'm always prepping that way. The prep is just different now because it's a little bit easier than it used to be. And as the business has grown, we don't have as much time to record episodes as we used to because there's so many other things going on. There's client things and there's growth things and there's all that stuff going on. The podcast will always be number one. It'll always be the thing. It'll always be the number one priority. But it used to get 100% of our time. It can't get 100% of our time. It can still get 75%, which our 75% now is probably what our 95% was back then. And I think that's performance. Performance is giving the same amount of quality in less time as your competence increases. But for all new podcasters, that advice is the advice I would give. because I think that's what allowed me to get to the place that I am at today. It was the fact that I was prepping more than anybody else I know, and that's why now I can go do an interview with almost no prep because I've done it so many times. I think that's a big piece of it. So it's one of those things where I can eat pizza and stay in shape because I know my body really well and I know how many calories I need and I know how many calories in the pizza, but I wouldn't advise that to a new person dieting. Same thing with this. If you're new in
Yeah,
podcasting, fundamentals, prep, rep, reflect, perfect. If you're 7 years in, your journey and your competence and your checklist is just going to be different than it was at the beginning.
I think I get how the expertise still applies,
Mm,
even with my uh, w- even with the number of podcast episodes that I've done. Because if it roughly takes me a day to prepare and work through a guest interview, and it goes not before the interview, it's around the interview. There is
mm,
amount of times I spent preparing for the interview itself, and then there is a bunch of time that I am processing
yeah,
what happened on the interview,
yeah.
and maybe to get out the things that I could have done better, the things that I want to think about, and that we did not have time to talk about on the episode, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I set in the next cycle. And for your expertise, when you've done a lot of guest episodes, you are into this cycle, but now the guest is always the same, but you
Yes.
get to prepare in the same manner by storing and getting the experiences from the outside. Like you're doing a business meeting, you're talking about sales. You will get this topic and bring it with you to the
Yes.
episode, and share it. I get, yeah, this translation of expertise into efficiency of your business and your podcast as the branch of the business,
Mm,
actually. Yeah, cool.
I appreciate it.
What are your personal development goals for the next year? What do you want to improve for yourself? Not for the business, but for you as a person.
The biggest one for me is I have a very large fear of disappointing people. That's like my core wound is I don't like when people are disappointed in me. And I think that's a good thing because it facilitates high delivery, but I also think it can be too much. And I think right now it's too much and I think it's controlling me more than it needs to or it should or is constructive. So I would really like to work on that over the course of the next year and go. I've already been reaching out to therapists, and I'll be going into therapy to work through that and figure out where all that comes from and go back to childhood and all that. So yeah, that's really my big focus is the
That's
internal.
very meta. I understood nothing. Can you like put it into an example? What you're talking about?
When so right now we serve dozens and dozens of clients. If I get a
Yep.
message from a client where they're disappointed in something that we did, it takes my entire day off the rails. It's I almost want to cancel every meeting for the rest of my day because I'm so hijacked mentally. It just it just triggers me. It's so triggering because immediately it's I'm not good enough. We're not good enough. We're gonna get left behind. This person doesn't like me anymore. I want to work on controlling that more so it doesn't run me as much as it currently is. Because here's the thing: the more you serve clients, the more opportunity there is for disappointment. And if I'm subconsciously afraid of disappointing or failing and I'm not growing the business because of that, that becomes, like we were talking earlier, that becomes kind of self sabotage. So I'm trying to avoid that by going to the source and figuring out, okay, why are you so afraid of letting people down and disappointing people? Has it crossed the point where it's not constructive anymore? That's my main focus right now.
I see. Cool. That's great that you have the capacity to go there and find it out how you can process those things better because
Mm.
they can get to you. The negative emotions are, we are wired in the way where negative emotions are stronger than the
Hmm.
positive signals and the positive experience that we are getting. So uh, one negative piece of feedback would outweigh 20 positive,
Yes.
like super easy.
Yep.
And we need to find the extra structure to balance it out for ourselves. So great
Thank you.
thing that is you're hanging uh, in the position where you can invest in finding it out for yourself and improving your balance.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. It was a great question. It's different than the business, and that's why self improvement connects to everything. Right? There's a piece of me that's holding back the business based on something I just haven't worked through yet, and I think it's important to recognize that.
Great conversation. Thank you so much for coming to our podcast.
Of course, it was my pleasure, Alex. You're wonderful. You're a wonderful host. I'm grateful for the time. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Alrighty. Hope to talk more soon.
For sure.